my fellow peasants, to a new kind of video that I don't see very often on YouTube, which I think is a shame, because sure, we get to see people's thoughts and reactions in playthroughs, but really, how much can that streamer articulate without interrupting the people who are fucking talking? I've always struggled with it, but...
Well, that's just because I've got shit to say, you know?
I am untethered and my rage knows no bounds!
Me, my main draw to Final Fantasies is intensely on the story, often to the detriment of amazing side content being left strewn to the wayside and unrealised potentials remaining buried in the combat system. The truth is that, yes, when I go to bed at 2 in the morning after a stream that made the crazy chocobo look pretty clued on, I confess I wake up the next day very much replaying what I just experienced on stream, so I want to do this, and this way I get to do both. Air my thoughts when they're fresh in my mind and do more content that if you guys enjoy, please hit subscribe and that will give me an idea if people want some more. But diving straight in, so I've just experienced chapter 7 in my FF13 playthrough, so I'm going to go from there. And this is one of my personal favourite story crescendos that I want to talk about this video. It's the Hope and Snow arc. Snow and Hope. SNOPE. I think it's dope. Because the way Toriyama and Najima willingly accept the gamble on these two characters with what I feel is no short amount of investment, of attention that is, in the game's first 15 hours, no less. That's to say, we're hearing a lot of whining about how much of a douche Snow is, while the grander plot of the game is remaining largely elusive and just kind of bubbling beneath the surface, and instead we have continuous jump cuts between, this smiling guy got my mum killed, I'm a smiley guy.
His arrogance is making me mad.
Your hero is back.
He doesn't give a shite. I don't give a shite. There's so much that could go wrong with hedging your story bets on the plot of cowardly wet fish kid turned murderous psychopath and dude still reading too many hero comics in his 20s. If someone didn't feel at least some intense frustration for this drawn-out feud that one of them isn't even aware of because the other is too much of a pussy to tell him, then I'd say your threshold is pretty low, because I felt it numerous times. The irrationality of Hope blaming Nora's fully willing sacrifice on the guy who convinced her to not be purged quietly. But then the aggravating contradiction of some random bozo desperately trying to tell us and everyone in the game he's a hero, when all he did was send untrained victims sliding to a quicker death. Then it's straight back to, is his back turned? I hate you. Hee. And that's why it's brilliant. By intentionally playing up the worst traits of each of these characters to a point where they become purely unlikable at times. I feel like we, the player, get to see how Snow and Hope view each other. Follow me here, because one sees a reckless egotist and the other just a naive kid, and we feel that also. You telling me if I got a room full of 100 people together to experience Snow for the first time, you telling me some of them ain't gonna be wearing Hope's stank eye face? But then along comes chapter 7, and does it pay off? My peasants, in my opinion, is a resounding yes. Once Hope confronts him above the rooftops of the gorgeous Palampolum, the situation takes a very quick 180. Suddenly Snow is stripped bare of his heroic alter ego, and we see this guilt-ridden idealist who knows the full burden of his sins. And at this point in the game, that was a person we weren't sure even existed. Maybe we'd only had small hints of it through various hand-clenched monologues. But as for Hope's rage, now that's the energy. That's the energy that really pays off the investment that they put into SNOPE. Because it carries the tension to a butt-puckering peak where you really can't tell what this kid, whose grief and the circumstances, the stress, the influence he's been around, the revenge suppression has been allowed to fester into something truly dark. You just have no idea. And again, I'm pretty sure Hope was actually gonna stab him. Pretty sure. It gets pretty grim at this part. But this is where this malignant weigh down on the story's pacing, which it can feel like at times, it suddenly accelerates. The confrontation happens at last. They're thrown off the roof in a fiery freefall, plunging hundreds of feet. Two guys who had been forced to just confront their darkest demons, hurtling down, crashing through planes of glass, and then what emerges, for me at least, at the bottom are two redeemed characters with relatable hardships that I can now back and get behind. Now, I think that's the power of this scene. We see the man who is willing to piggyback the burden of his actions, and then the grieving young man who knew he was just looking for someone to blame. And suddenly this whole pyramid that had been built up to a frustrating and wholly dramatic degree, more dramatic than they need to be, it all comes crashing down. And replaying Chapter 7 again, it gave me a renewed insight into what I feel is one of the grittiest hurdles two characters in the series had to overcome to being teammates. You know, especially in a franchise where many just kind of meet atop a mountain or out in the wilderness and just start basically intrinsically entrusting each other. Even when hate did have to be overcome to be teammates. So say, for example, Beatrix in 9. That was more hatred for what she was having to do for her duty, for what she stood for. It's not as rare as the personal, deep-rooted loathing and attempted murder that we see between Hope and Snow. I think it was something very ingenuitive and enjoyable to witness and to play out. Though not pretty and at times, infuriating, it had a deeper layer of realism, feeling to it for that reason. Because it wasn't pretty and it was infuriating. Like with Hope, his noticeable transitions follow through all stages of these 7 stages of grief far more realistically than I think we usually get to see in JRPG characters. First there's shock, denial, anger, bargaining. Now this is the step that often is done minimalistically, I feel, or skipped altogether. In Hope trying to make Lightning's Falsy warpath his own mission and creating his own basically assassination attempt called Operation Nora, they're his attempted scapegoats of the situation. But then comes the depression and the hopelessness of those actually working, which then spike into more anger at the inevitable, and then finally testing Hope can now do because the delusion of killing Snow, helping, is gone. And then finally the acceptance to come later on in the story. I think it was a very unique risk the story writers took with this section, with these two characters. But I feel, and I know some people are going to disagree, I feel it was worth the reward for the deeper resonance it gave players, gave me, or some to these two main party members. The peaceful, yet at the same time stressful setting of Palampolum made for a perfect setting to cash in this coin. Even on a combat level of Punchbag, Sentinel, Snow, and Hope having to forgive the guy and heal to work together in order to survive, even that ties in pretty tight thematically. Hope having to look past his hatred to heal. Definitely a memorable FF moment. I love it. And there we go. I'd like to give a huge thanks so much for watching, guys. A huge trench coat full of full cushioning love to my Patreons. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. And video coming soon on where you will all be able to see your revamped avatars. They are looking so good. So good. And to everyone else who made it this far in the video, thank you so much. Comment, like, subscribe. This is just one peasant's view. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Until the next Snope. Video. Kumo!